If you keep on the path you're on, you could be in some serious trouble. However, if you pivot too early or in the wrong direction, it can be even worse. Stick around. This one's for you.
Brian, there was an episode of the show Friends where they're trying to get a couch up the stairs, and Ross is on one end of it, and it's clear that the couch is just way too big for that staircase and it's never going to work. But he's up there constantly yelling, pivot,
Pivot,
in different tones, and it's quite hilarious. It's a great scene. But I think about that every time we talk about the great pivot. And it's interesting because we were just talking about resilience in a previous episode. I think it was the last episode before this one. We were talking about resilience, and now we're talking about knowing when to pivot and how to know that you're doing it the right way. And I think we've had some trial and error here.
Yep.
And part of it is, let's take it back to the beginning. And again, I don't want to just toss it to you blindly here, but I have a hard time sort of framing this in terms of, I want to talk about, well, what is the problem that you're seeing, or what are the trends that are happening that are causing you to even think about, that we need a pivot? Is it just something that hit you while you were driving? Was it a bad sandwich? What was it? Was something led you to this moment where you're trying to decide how to pivot? But what's the best way to sort of frame this so that we have a non-rambling discussion?
Okay, non-rambling discussion. First of all, have we pivoted as a company?
We have.
Okay. Have we pivoted more than once?
Yes.
Do you recall, maybe not, the almost frantic call that sets these things into motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Your answers are right there. A pivot for a company, if it's just a hunch, a gut instinct, what have you, it's not a pivot. It's just risk, and that's okay. Again, I'll say that's okay. You do you. But an actual pivot is looking at all the signs, every sign, seeing a pattern, seeing something that you could almost test against, that you could say, well, if the Dow Jones gets to this, that means X or Y, or has a good likelihood of. So in our case, the first pivot came by understanding the incredible economic downturn that was about to hit, by seeing signs in the market, seeing signs in the Dow, seeing signs in other businesses like ours, and saying something's going on. And then taking time to analyze it. And then from the analysis saying, well, what's the legitimate way to continue doing what we're doing inside of this realm? And I think the second time it happened, it was like that, except there was a lot less prove it. The first time you were like, wait, what are you seeing? Why are you seeing it? How are you seeing it? And then we sat down and discussed it. The second time and the third time we've had to pivot, it was one of us bringing to the table, hey, I'm noticing this. What are you noticing? Comparing notes and then saying, well, if it's this, what would this look like? And maybe we're wrong. So what would this change actually do to us at this moment in time? That second piece is critical, because understanding it is understanding what a change could means success or failure. And if you realize that you can change and it might actually hurt business, but it wouldn't kill you, then maybe it's worth doing. Specifically, if the upside is it will save us if everything is going the way we think it's going.
Yeah.
So it takes analysis. It can't just be a gut feeling. It's got to be gut feeling with, if that makes sense.
That was what I was going to say. Yeah, I was going to say that idea, the gut feeling. I tend to have a lot of gut feelings, but I think I used to be reactive to them, and it was like, turn the ship this way, full speed ahead. We gotta. And I think the way to really think of it is exactly what you said. It's the gut feeling plus. And so now if I have a gut feeling, I do a couple of things. One is I reflect on it. I ask myself a bunch of questions about why am I feeling this way? What is going on right now? Because sometimes um, inputs might come from different places and you're not exactly aware that they're even coming in. But you're taking them in. Your brain's taking them in. And then one day you're sitting around and something's hitting you. A feeling is hitting you and you're not quite sure why. So sometimes you have to sit back and think about it a little bit and understand why you're feeling this way. But I would even go that step further. What I do is I call I call Brian. Say, Brian, I'm feeling this sort of way. And then we sit and we have a chat and we talk, and he'll ask some very pointed questions that really kind of pull some things out or extract things out. It can feel like a therapy session sometimes, which is so you're like my unpaid therapist, which is great. But no, I think taking it that step further of then also hopefully you have a little trusted tribe that you can go to and talk to these things, talk about these things with, because that's critical. If you just stay in your own mind and you're having that gut feeling, and you have to be really careful with that, because if you're just trusting your own gut and your own mind without an additional filter to help kind of challenge some of the thoughts you have, that could spell disaster. So I think reaching out is a big and to this as well.
So there's a first place to start. It's a baseline for any of this, and it's first identify the problem, and is it really a problem? If your business is going down and you think it's because of something external, great, investigate. First, you have to investigate. It could be because of horrible service. It could be because of, I don't know, a million and one things, the way you're marketing yourself. But if there's really a problem and it's external, then we've talked about this before, being 1 foot versus 5 feet in front of the breaking wave. Where do you want to be? So go to where you want to be. So say, okay, well, the market's down, this is down, this is down, this is how this impacts. We know advertising dollars dry up when this happens. Oh, we're in the wrong place doing what we're doing at this moment in time. And then you have to sort of skate to where that's going to be in a preemptive fashion. Because once that wave breaks, it's too late. You now have to go on to the fire sale mechanism or the let's get quick capital in here. You cannot pivot. You're playing catch up. Catch up is a far inferior game to play.
Yeah.
But if you're not really reading the signs and you think you are, but you really haven't put in the work, then you pivot and you're further away from where you were and now have to skate back to that area.
Yeah.
And that makes it harder. So you can do a lot of damage if you're not taking the time to reflect upon what's going on, what impact it has. There's an entire industry in financials based on analytics and analysis. If I buy this company, what's its impact on these companies upstream or downstream? Well, the same goes for the pivot. You have to be able to say, well, what's happening in the market? Is it isolated? Is it existing inside of its own bubble? What does that bubble look like? What are the edges of the bubble? How do I navigate through that bubble? And if you can't answer that, it's best to just, unfortunately, keep analyzing. And if you have to play catch up, at least you'll be ready to play catch up. It's much better to be aware of what's happening and not have the answers than it is to make a rash decision that makes no sense because it's not based on reality.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I like the word analysis because I think that's important. I think sometimes we can fall victim to trends and see them as a harbinger of things to come, and they're not. They're just a passing fad. And sometimes, I mean, anyone who's watched all of our episodes may start to think, why is Brian a business partner with this guy? all the stories lead back to something that happened with him in the past. But I'll throw one. There was a time when having sort of the VR was just blowing up. There were agencies popping up that were all VR focused, and there were a few characters who were like they were the be all end all in VR, and Quest. They were making a lot of noise with all the different headsets coming out and all of that. And I thought it was a good idea to invest in a device that was going to help us, capture this 360 environment, which meant this particular device meant, software, meant systems that were powerful enough to drive them, 6 different GoPros. It was a whole thing. But I was chasing a gut feeling that was not really founded in anything real. And I want to be really direct about this part of the conversation because I think this helps. That sometimes what we are chasing is, again, it goes back to the idea of the chase, something that we were wanting for ourselves that was not really it was a trend and it wasn't for us. There was an entire back end that was needed for this that is not who we were as a company. And so that was not a good investment in that piece of kit. It taught us a few things, but at the same time, that's an example of when a pivot is not a good one. And it was done for the wrong reasons. Whereas we have some other pivots that we've done that were based on, they actually started as a gut feeling, but in the analysis, they became very good pivots for us. And they involved a lot of conversation. There was some good logic behind why it was happening. And it was not based on necessarily micro trends. It was based on where things were actually heading. And it was because we were analyzing exactly what was going on in the industry and the economy with our clients and their industries. That's the important one, right? Is what's going on in their industry and how could we be ahead of that so that our clients were protected. Those are the best pivots. It's not about you and a technology piece. It's about your clients and their journey. But I thought that was something that I wanted to bring up because it's been circling in my head since we started this conversation.
There's an importance here because the thing is, there's a way to get ahead of all this. And it's maybe easier than you can imagine. And that's, we've talked about feedback from your clients before. Well, here's a perfect one. If you're in a feedback loop, constantly ask, what are you not providing that they would like to see? Yeah. The big thing right now is AI. AI this, AI that. And that's all wonderful. I'm not all in on AI because if I do, it changes my business model so completely that it actually may destroy us. If I wait to see a little bit more about where it's heading as it relates to me, that's more critical. Now, the place that I'm ahead of it, I say Henhouse is ahead of it, is we understand AI, we utilize AI, we don't produce using AI, but we're in that space, we understand it. We also know the legalities of our industry, the Wild West of AI and its legalities, and we can act as a very, very important conduit through which our clients can get information, even if they decide they want to try AI on their own and do their own video work through it. So pivoting to be ahead sometimes just means being a leader in a specific area of it. So people now know, oh, Henhouse and AI. I've got other people out there who are constantly bandying about, oh my God, look at what it can do, look at what it can do. And they're doing things like they're not thinking about the legality of what they're doing. Some of this stuff's dangerous. It's like drone work. Mm-hmm. Warning somebody, you don't fly a drone over that and post it to your reel because A, B, and C. From a legal standpoint, I just saved you. I just saved you from opening up a federal investigation because you flew over a train track. And I know what that's about. It's things like that. So it's really taking, sometimes a pivot is a step in the direction where your clients are going to need you. It's not necessarily a wholesale change in what you're doing. Other times it is a wholesale and whole scale change in what you're doing, but you have to be really sure of it. Yeah. And the times we pivoted hard, It's that wholesale. Now we're pivoting softly because there are
Mm-hmm.
places where I'm not ready to change everything just because everybody thinks every last thing you ever could want is going to be available in AI. Sure,
Mm-hmm.
probably, but not yet.
Yeah. And I think that gives me a good way to reframe what happened in the past with that one device that I bring up. It's the difference between looking at those internal uh, desires, right? Everything
Mhm.
that's internally faced. It's about us, about us, about us, about us. Where what it is now and has been for a while. It's not, this is one instant that happened a long time ago. But what it has been for a long time is that our pivots are externally driven by our customers and how we serve them. And I think that's an important distinction. How can we get ahead of where they need to be? Um, to me, it's about I'm a protector, and I want to see my clients protected at every step. So I want to keep an eye on them and make sure that they're safe.
So I'm going to nerd
Uh,
out, geek out, whatever for a moment here. If you can connect dots
yeah.
of what's going on, you almost become almost like a conspiracy theorist. You connect the dots of what's happening and
Hmm.
you extrapolate the outcome.
Mm,
Pivot is mathematical. Pivots exist along dot points. So if
great
you can
point.
connect the dots and say, oh, I missed this dot, but I can get ahead of that dot, and here's where I change, you have a map. You have a way to continue. You've got to go where your clients need you. They may not know that you need you, but you've got to get prepped for it. For
Yeah.
us, the AI discussion is very real. Yeah, there are people
Hmm.
who are like, nope, we're doing it all AI. Great. Good luck with that. That's fine. I can tell you some things you're going to need to keep in mind if you want to have that discussion. And if you don't, the clients I already have will have that discussion with me. There are some
Mm,
who will hand us scripts saying, we did our first pass with AI. Can you folks massage it? Yep. And when you did it on your first pass, did you double check it to make sure that these terms, phrases, and concepts are accurate within your industry? Because there's a, oh, it's funny you say that. There were about 5 places we had to make those alterations because AI gave us some good. You're already ahead of it. But by me reinforcing that and
mm,
showing them places to look at, I have a I won't say client for life, but I have a friend for life. And
hmm.
hopefully a client, but definitely a friend, somebody who's going to
Yeah,
think, huh, Brian looked
definitely.
out for us. So
Yeah. And that's ultimately what it's all about. And I look
it
at
is.
that idea of pivoting too. You have to be cautious about how much you do all at once, how big of a pivot it is, how big of a change it is. Are you staying true to who you are and who you want to be as a company? Sometimes the marketplace will tell you what you want. Everyone always famously talks about PayPal and how it didn't start as what it became, but they saw how people were actually using it and said, "Oh, wait a minute. Uh, if we just did this," and suddenly it became what it became
Yeah.
because they were keeping an eye on how people were actually using it. And I think the same is true for what we do. If we're stuck in the one place that we've always been, and we're not paying attention to what's actually happening out there and what our customers are seeing, and they're going to see it quickly too. If you're not able to provide for them, this is why this is so important: is that your clients, as much as they might love you, if you're not proactively offering or giving them what they need to continue to grow and thrive and really survive in their industry, you're going to force their hand. They're going to have to find a different solution um, to make that happen. And so the status quo uh, is our biggest enemy. Complacency is our biggest enemy, and we have to continue to evolve and change. And sometimes the pivots are small. They don't have to be these massive, massive things. Sometimes they're just small little pivots. Sometimes it's
This,
recognizing that something you're doing isn't working as well. It could be a simple thing, and you just make that small change that rights the ship.
and
Another
the
ship that
small
happens.
pivots actually allow you to experiment. The
Yeah.
small pivots allow you to say, oh, let's see how this works. Let's see how that works. Let's see what if.
Hmm.
And I mean that's also part of it. It's got to be, if you don't want to f up your business, there are certain things you have to avoid, and that's rapid change for the wrong reason, and
Yeah.
that's change not fast enough, but for the right reasons. And if you can walk the line and realize that the pivot is there as a way for you, as a matter of fact, forget everything we've just said, forget it all. Based on earlier episode where we talk about getting feedback, if the pivot serves as nothing more than testing your ideas against your client, great. Your client isn't necessarily going to tell you, you need to provide more A, B, and C for us.
Mm-hmm.
So it is contingent upon you, also within that feedback loop that we've already discussed, to go out and say, here's some questions, because we're making some movements in this direction.
Yeah.
Would this be helpful and why? What wouldn't be helpful of the things we've just laid out here for you and why? And your better clients, actually most of your clients, if you have any relation, will respond. And they may be all over the map. But I guarantee you, more times than not, you are going to find consensus in certain areas that'll help you figure out where to direct it to pivot toward.
That's amazing. That is perfect. And I'm telling you, that feedback side of it is so huge. Really quickly, as we wrap this episode, we had lunch with one of our clients when we knew a pivot was coming. And what was interesting about the meeting is it constantly went back to one thing. And that was the thing that how she felt about what we provide. And none of it was technical. It was making it easy for her, that she could tell us A, B, or C and didn't have to explain so fully that she was almost reinventing the wheel to keep explaining. We knew them so well that it's something that she could just come to us quickly and say, I need this, and here's why, and boom, we're off to the races. And she kept going back to that. And that was a very interesting moment to be a part of, because I think it just reinforced a lot of the stuff that we had already been thinking. So that feedback loop is critical. So again, don't internalize the pivots. Don't just make it about your gut feeling and your thoughts. If you have an amazing business partner like I do, have a conversation.
Like I do.
And if you don't, find some trusted folks that you can have that conversation. Explain the context of it, and then tell them what you're feeling, and then have them ask you some questions. There are a lot of folks out there too that you can reach out to. We have a small business development organization that would gladly, they have volunteers, retirees who come in, and they're expert in business, and they can help you with things like that. So reach out, find people who you can have that conversation with. Don't do it in a silo. And definitely look for feedback from your clients. Trust your clients too. Maybe they're the ones to chat with, right? We did it, and I've been very happy with that. I know, Brian, you are as well. But this really matters. You put down a little formula here: pivoting equals evolving equals growth. And you also said growth equals sustainability to continue your mission. And spot on. That's it. We have to keep evolving, and so the pivot has to be a part of our toolkit. But there's a smart way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And hopefully from this episode, you got some tips about how to do it in a better way. But let us know what your thoughts are about this episode. What do you think about pivoting? Are you in the middle of one? Are you about to make some big changes in your business or how you work with your clients? Or tell us about it in the comments below. Reach out to us. Let us know. And let us know what you think of this episode. We really appreciate everyone tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next one.